I'm joined by our political editor, Andrew Clennell. Andrew, I guess the issue now under the spotlight is whether the Prime Minister has breached the Ministerial Code of Conduct in the past. Obviously, it's a Gillard-Rudd code. Whether he's breached the Registrar of Members' interests, and whether or not in all of that, all this gifting given to him, he was influenced by thousands of dollars of upgrades to act in Qantas's interest and not Australia's national interest.
Well, I think the biggest issue in all this is whether or not Anthony Albanese contacted Alan Joyce for these upgrades. And as we sit here tonight, there's an allegation from Joe Aston, which Joe Aston believes that he did actually contact Alan Joyce. And the position of Anthony Albanese, as I understand it, is he did not contact Alan Joyce for these upgrades. So it's a fascinating situation. I mean, there wasn't any angry statement out of the PMO on Saturday when this allegation was first made. This is not true. You know, I never went to Alan Joyce. There's no threat of defamation from Anthony Albanese. My understanding is his position is I called some sort of chairman's lounge line or some sort of line and this is how this occurred. So there are still big questions around this. And he's able to point to the fact many politicians from both sides have received upgrades. Not all of them were Transport Minister. Paul Fletcher, he says, received 69 upgrades, but Cam Reddins reported this afternoon when John Anderson was Transport Minister, he never accepted an upgrade back in the Howard days. So I think the way he's responded to it, there are a lot of questions. One tactic you can go down is, yeah, I contacted this person in Qantas and so what? Just told him I was travelling or whatever. That hasn't occurred.
Yeah, well, let's just pull this apart, Andrew. Let's just pull this apart because I spoke to someone very senior on the inside of Qantas who says there is no special number for upgrades. That's certainly my understanding. I worked for a Prime Minister. There was no number that we were aware of that you called for an upgrade. I make the point my old boss wouldn't accept them, but we were never told that there was a number, right? So if there's not a number, if the Prime Minister's saying there's a number, well, you're in Canberra, you're a journo, Andrew. Let's get that number from him. Let's ring that number. Let's test his word. Let's see that there is this Qantas number you call for upgrades, because I'm told it does not exist. Now, you make the point that this blew up on the weekend. We're only now getting a rebuke from the Prime Minister. I put it to you as someone who's worked in a political office and had to manage the proverbial shit sandwich like this. I reckon between this news breaking on the weekend and today, someone's got hold of Alan Joyce, someone's made contact with him and said, I'm going to deny this, you're going to cover my backside, and that's where we are tonight. And he was a little bit loose in completely ruling it out because he's perhaps worried there might be more in this book that'll be available when it's launched tonight, or there might be a stray text message that emerges in coming days. But even if he didn't actually call Alan Joyce on every one of those 22 occasions, perhaps he texted the EA and said, look, let Alan know I'm flying to London on QF2 on Saturday night. Any help would be gratefully received. That's how it's done. And I think the Prime Minister is on very thin ice tonight.
Well, you could imagine a situation where, because how else do you get the upgrades, where someone is messaged and told, I'm on this flight, you don't have to do anything but appreciate any help. Because after all, he declares the upgrades in the end, doesn't he? So I think, look, I mean, they'll be thinking, you know, Melbourne Cup, American election next week, all this will go away a bit. But it does seem to me that there's some more probing of the PM on this that could occur and probably will occur, because it's running absolutely everywhere now. That's the thing. It's been a decent hit from Joe Aston. It comes after the $4.3 million house purchase. It means some of the gloss has come off the PM. Some of the you know, I grew up in social housing story, and I think the PM, you know, has been in Parliament since 1996, and as you spend your career in Parliament, you get more and more freebies. You get free tickets to the footy, you go in the boxes. I've done that as a journalist myself. And you get these things which the public probably sort of suspect happen, but when it's highlighted, it's pretty ugly, and that's flight upgrades. Now, Peter Dutton says he should refer himself to the NAC. The test for Peter Dutton will be, with Parliament on next week, will he pursue this in question time? If he does, there's some risk attached, because he will know there are people on his side who have accepted upgrades and the like. But if he thinks it's serious enough for the Prime Minister to refer himself, I don't think he has a choice.
I thought he looked pretty rattled today, and he was tetchy. He really let it get under his skin. What did you think?
I think that the Prime Minister's reaction in the press conference today is the sort of reaction he would probably have in his private office with staff and when allegations are made against you. And I think it's better not to take that approach if you're a leader, to take it so personally, if you like. I mean, you might have your own opinion of Joe Aston, but if you think you're being unfairly attacked, or you're part of what you see as an attack on Alan Joyce, that you're collateral damage, then I guess the old saying is rise above it. You know, just say, no, I didn't contact Alan Joyce, or I don't recall any sort of contact like that, and I'm more interested in more important issues for Australians. It's quite a standard, simple response if that is the Prime Minister's version of events. And instead we got an angry tirade against Mr Dutton, Mr Aston, and even including, you know, saying I was on the Perth to London flight or whatever, and so all these media are on the junket as well. Look, that may all be true, but it's how you say these things. It's the tone. I mean, politicians who've done a bit of training always talk to me about the tone and how people perceive the tone. And the less you're angry, the better. And Anthony Albanese needs no better study of that than his predecessor. I mean, he's at risk of making the same mistakes as Scott Morrison. Scott Morrison looked angry in the job, and at the end, in the end, that was one of the reasons why voters turfed him out.
All right, thank you for that. We'll leave it there, Andrew. It'll be an absolute feature when Parliament returns next week. It will not go away. I think once this book is in everyone's hands tonight at the launch from Joe Aston, there'll be more revelations, and I think it's going to keep going unless we get some answers. Thank you, Andrew Clennell.